Good morning. John Gilkison here again, National Public Observatory. We're going to resume the laser guided star tour today on booties, and I just wanted to preface the presentation with a few remarks here, as well as pointing out the physical shape of the constellations. You need to at least try to include an alpha star for most of the constellations you do. And if you can remember some kind of detail about the star, that's helpful. Obviously, you can't really remember specific information about each and every star, and you wouldn't want to include it anyway because the tour would go too long. But for example, we're in booties now, and the alpha star is Arcturus, and it's 37 light years away. So if you can just include information on one or two stars like that, that would be helpful. The other thing is don't forget to include the cardinal points. And for example, not off to one side from booties is the constellation Comet, and it's the North Galactic Pole. And the last program I did, it was straight up at the zenith, which meant that the plane of the Milky Way was around us, all on the horizon. So we weren't seeing it, but you can point this out. And what I forgot to include the other day is the North Ecliptic Pole in Draco, which, well, I haven't quite got to it yet. It's on another map. But anyway, so try to include it, because 90 degrees away from it is the plane of the ecliptic. So you will forget things. That's just in the nature of things. You are dealing with a new sky every time, or a slightly different sky. There can be cloud cover in parts of the sky, or seeing conditions will vary, and so forth. So you'll never do two programs exactly the same. So let's pause it here and see if we can't get into continuing the tour. Here we go. Again, as I was pointing out the other day, this is Arcturus right here. It's the alpha star. It's 37 light years away. And over here is Comet Berenice right in the corner, and this is where the North Galactic Pole is. Now, underneath the arm of the Dipper, this is the N star, and the Dipper right here, Alcade, and the Dipper goes off this way off the map. But there is a small constellation right here called Canis Minor, the hunting dogs, and the alpha star in it's Cor Coralie, which this is a historical constellation because it was only created in like the 1600s. And the alpha star, Cor Coralie, literally means the heart of King Charles. And the only reason to mention it is because of that, but also it is a very beautiful double star. So you might include it in a telescope tour. Okay, we're going to pause here because we've got to turn the pages. There we go. So we follow the arc of the handle to Arcturus and then on to Spica. And this is Spica right here, and it's the alpha star in Virgo. Now you might notice this red line running through the chart here. This is the ecliptic. So, and depending on the position, let's say the North Ecliptic Pole is to the right or left of the pole star, that's your guide to the way the ecliptic will run in the sky also, and you can point this out. But I always make out the shape of Virgo. This part of it is like a martini glass. You got the arms, or the Y of Virgo, and then down to Spica. Now you can make out a larger shape, but that's a good one. And this star right in the middle here, Parina, is a really good star to point out. because again, it's a nice double, and it's just opened up in the last 5 years or so that you can see it. And apparently, Parina means it's the Roman goddess of childbirth. So that's an interesting thing to point out to people. And of course, this is a realm of the nebulae running all the way through this whole area right in here. Is exactly away from the plane of the Milky Way galaxy, and we see all these galaxies. The Virgo galaxies run out to 50 million light years. And then you have Corvus the Crow down here, which you want to point out. It's a very visible constellation. And running underneath it is a chain of stars that makes up Hydra. Now Hydra goes all the way on, it spans the sky 100 degrees. So you're just seeing the tail end of it here. But it's an important constellation to point out because this whole area of the sky we often call a Hydra Void, and it's devoid of bright stars. There's lots of galaxies in it, but the brightest star in the whole area is Alfred, which they call the lonely one, simply because there's hardly any bright stars in this area. So let's stop here and move on. Here we are. I had to go back to Leo the Lion. Because we are on the ecliptic, Virgo would be off this direction, towards the east. In the last program we did, Leo the Lion was high up in the sky. So I always point out that we're looking at like a Sphinx lion. Imagine a Sphinx lion from the side. And this backwards question mark right here is the head of the lion. And this whole shape here is his body, and this is his tail end right here. And the alpha star here is Regulus. And then you can see the ecliptic running right through it. And over here they're pointing out the beehive. This is in the middle of Cancer, so you can point it out. This will be a fuzzy object in the sky. The beehive appears nebulous to the naked eye. Below it we have the head of Hydra right here, and again, as I said, it goes on 100 degrees across the sky. But on down this way there'll be Alfred, the lonely one that I talked about earlier. So once you're on the ecliptic, it's really good to go sweep out the ecliptic for the whole sky. You don't want to just show Virgo and Leo and then go off onto other constellations without kind of completing the whole ecliptic. You need to connect it together for folks. And this, of course, is where you find the sun and the moon and the planets. In the last star party we did, we really didn't have any naked eye planets in the sky. Jupiter's just rising at the end of the program. Okay, here we are again. I'm going to be showing you both charts at once here so we can get some more stuff done. But as you can see towards the east from Virgo, here's Virgo right here, the end where her feet are, we run into a constellation called Libra, which is basically just a box. And this is Zubinwan, Zubinesh Shamali, and Zubin Ganubi, which is Arabic, which I cannot pronounce. They stand for a northern claw and southern claw of the scorpion. And of course it got made into a separate constellation. So here's the scorpion. We're seeing it right here. That's just the head of it. And this is Antares. And the name Antares means rival of Mars because it's a red star. So you're seeing all of Antares over here on this side. Right here. There's Antares, and this is, we're seeing all of Scorpius, And it definitely one of those constellations that looks like what it says it is. It looks like a scorpion. And when you go on down, you follow the curve of it, and you end right here in this star, Shula, which means stinger. And right here where the bend is something called the false comet, which is an open cluster and then a more spread out open cluster and then a nebulosity. And the whole thing, if the constellation's high in the sky, you can point that out. So again, you're seeing the ecliptic run right through here. You're seeing it here. Okay. And then the next constellation over is Sagittarius, which is only now just coming up. Okay. And I just point out the teapot shape of the constellation. So in other words, you have the bottom of the teapot, and then you got some sloping sides here, and a domed roof, like a lid on the teapot. And this here is the spout, and this is a pouring handle, right here. So, and up here, right above the top of the teapot is M28, and then you have M22 here, which is a beautiful globular cluster to show people. Same thing, another beautiful globular cluster is M4 right off of Antares. And you have two gorgeous open clusters, M7 and M6, that can be shown. Now we're only seeing just parts of it. Ophiuchus is a giant constellation in the sky, which is just now becoming available. And this is just the bottom of it right here. That's all we're seeing. So we'll pause here. We're going to go back, try to get the other side. Okay, here we go. Leo would be over on this side over here, but we're going back along the ecliptic here. And there's the ecliptic line. And this is a famous constellation, Gemini. And this is Pollux and Castor right here. Castor's a beautiful double. And Gemini, of course, is the twins, so you have, he's basically box-shaped. You can pick up these stars too over here. And so right here at the foot of Gemini, it's a beautiful open cluster, M35, which you can show telescopically. You don't mention it in the laser tours necessarily. But it right around the foot of Gemini, right in this region, is when the sun arrives at this point. It's June 21st, June 22nd. It's the summer solstice. So, and this used to be called the Tropic of Cancer. So a couple thousand years ago, the sun would arrive to this point, and it would be the summer solstice. And because of precession, it's moved all the way back to here. So again, this is something you can point out. And also, Gemini is interesting. When it's higher in the sky, you can actually make out, running through it, some of the stars make the letter Z going this way. And that's interesting to point out because it's something the amateur astronomers would talk about in the 1930s. They don't really, you never hear it mentioned much anymore. Of course, we have over down below, we have Canis Minor, and this is a bright star, Procyon, right here. And then, of course, again, we have the beehive right here. And basically, the stars are really faint that make out Cancer, but I believe one of them's right there and one of them's right there, and it goes off. It's like a Y-shaped thing. And you can spot those three stars and point them out if you like, but I always just basically point to the beehive itself because it's a naked eye object. So you have Canis Minor here, the little dog, and you have just a couple stars, but off to one side you're going to see, now this is already set in late May, but you got Canis Major, and you have the dog star Sirius, and I just make him out to be a dog. You got the back of the dog, and this is the head, and this is his front leg, and this is his hind leg, and that's his tail. So here we are. We're going to stop here. We've covered the whole ecliptic.